Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Vino Frankel, a Taste of Sculpterra. I am your host, Paul Frankel, and it's my birthday today. Only 40 years old, 40 years old. And it's not just my birthday. It's Michael Jordan's, Ed Sheeran, Paris Hilton, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Billy Joel Armstrong, and Taylor Hawkins of the Foo Fighters. So happy birthday to all of you. And real men work on their birthdays, so I work on my birthdays. I'm doing it. Okay, so in this podcast, we talk about the world of wine, my wines at Sculpterra, grape growing, winemaking, the industry in general. We taste wine. Today, we're going to taste wine that we bottled this morning. We're tasting our Viognier 2025. So from last year's harvest, very young, but it's going to come out this weekend at our wine club party. So I brought that. And Cabernet Franc, which we bottled last week, 2023 Cab Franc. And I'd like my guests to introduce themselves. I've got two guests today in the podcast studios here in Paso, Robles. Let's go to Amy first. Amy Butler.
Hi, Amy Butler. I work at Baker Wine and Grape Analysis. I'm a lab chemist there. I'm TTB certified chemist now. And I was a winemaker for a lot of years, and I really enjoy bringing that background to the lab.
Perfect. Heather is also here, the owner of Baker Wine and Grape.
Hello, I'm Heather Mikelonis, owner of Baker Wine and Grape. I've been there since 2006, so 20 years, and became owner in 2022, and love the engagement with the wine industry and community that we have there, and the other industries that we serve as well: olive oil, beer, spirits, cider, and anything else you want to ferment. We can look at it at different times. So.
Yeah, they have a great lab. It's a lot of fun. When you walk into their lab, they have snacks. I always grab a snack for my son, and it's just a fun atmosphere. And they have lots of dogs. I think all of you have dogs.
Yeah, there were 2 dogs there this morning. And when I started working there, because I was a customer for years, and when I started working there, I realized what a big focus they put on snacks and like what snacks they get and what the trends are in snacking. And it's really great.
Very cool. Well, can give you guys an update of what's happening in the vineyard winery. Like I like to say, I don't always make sense, but I make wine. There we go. And then another thing, this is for my wife and son. I park far away, so you don't have to. Okay, so I let other people park right close to the wine lab. I'll park far away, and I'll walk and let other people park close. So, yeah, we've done a lot of bottling this week. This week and last week. We bottled 3,300 cases last week, and then we bottled about 1,000 this morning. So bottling is very stressful. It's probably the most stressful part of winemaking. It's just when it's going smooth, it's great. When there's problems occurring, then it's not so fun. But we had good operations. Everything worked out well. I bottled everything I needed to. So there we go. When we bottle wine, we check the NTUs of the turbidity of wine. So that's been my first question. So again, today's podcast, since we've got I have the ladies from the lab, I thought we can get really technical. We're going to talk about pH and TA. We're talking about VA, some things that you may or may not know about. But turbidity, can either of you tell me about this? What is turbidity?
Turbidity is the literally just like the cloudiness of the wine. But there's a scale for it, and there are accepted ranges of turbidity for wines. And the scale, we measure it in what's called NTUs, which are nephelometric turbidity units. What does that mean? We measure it with a nephelometer. The only thing a nephelometer does is measure turbidity. So it's kind of a self-referential process. But for a winemaker, knowing what the turbidity of their wine is prior to bottling, it gives them a clue on how clean they've racked, on maybe early on they want to decide whether or not to filter the wine, whether or not to settle the wine, whether to use a fining agent to make it settle faster or more. And then sometimes when you have a protein haze or a tartrate instability, that will increase the turbidity. So there are a lot of reasons and a lot of stages at which you want to look at the turbidity of wine, even as juice.
Yep. Yeah, awesome. Yeah, we bottle sterile, so we bottle through a 0.45 micron filter. So the turbidity needs to be below 1. It's below 1 NTU? Yeah.
NTU, yeah.
Yeah, below 1 NTUs. And if it's below 1, then it'll pass through a 0.45 micron filter, which is really tight and sterile. It should filter out bacteria, microbes, yeast. It's not 100%, but it's pretty good.
Yeah.
So
0.45 is like this sort of industry standard for clean bottling.
yeah, one of the wines I bottled ever since last week was a restaurant wine, Frugatti's. This is really special. It's an Italian restaurant in Bakersfield. Ralph, the owner, came to the bottling, and we made a video. It's going to be up. It might be up now, so look for that. And it's a blend of Petit Syrah, Cab Franc, Primitivo. And what's great is that Ralph came out last year, and I gave him a bunch of samples of wine and from the barrel, and he came up with the blend. And we spent a whole afternoon tasting and trialing different wines, and the wine came out fantastic. And it's an image of him as a young boy in Italy. Just a great guy. He brought his family to the bottling, and they got to hop on the truck, and one of his son was dumping glass, his older daughter was packing bottles, and they tried their best. It was going pretty fast, so we tried to have the bottle line turned down a bit, and so they can keep up, and they had a really wonderful time. So it's great because I've known Ralph for years, and I've just kept telling him, hey, you should have your own wine, your own restaurant wine. Their food is amazing, and it only makes sense that they, he pours his heart into everything that he does, and this is just like the icing on the cake at the restaurant. So very special, and he's going to sell it this weekend. It's going to be available. So if you're in the Bakersfield area, check it out. Frugatti's. Yes, and we are still we pruned. We've been pruning right since January. We actually finished pruning the pistachios last week. Viognier is our last grape varietal to prune, but we wait on that because the earlier you prune, the more bud break can start to crop out early. So we want to delay bud break so we don't get frost. So Viognier is the only vines we have left to prune, which we'll prune after this rain. Speaking of rain, we're now up to 13.19 inches. It's raining right now, so maybe by the weekend we'll be up to 15 inches. So the average in Paso is 10 inches of rain, typically, depending on what part of Paso you're in, where you live. So we're going to be above average for the season. And remember, the season for rain is June 30th to July 1st. So June to July. Yeah. And we made a pruning video that is up already, which is great because we recently changed over a VSP vineyard to cane pruning. So we cut the cordons completely back to the head and tied canes, and it looked pretty dramatic. People thought the vines were dying, that were out there killing the vineyard. So we made a video explaining it because it was confusing people, but we did a big cutback to the vines. So check out that video. And before you go any further, please like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell. Ask questions. Like this is a great example today. We got some really. We have people that are experts in lab analysis, wine chemistry, tasting. So we love to answer any questions that you have. Heather, I'm going to ask you a couple questions. So, what do you think of my hair?
I think it's good color, and I think the sideburns you got going down is a good level to balance what you have going on the top. I think it's good.
Yeah, I got my hair cut in Mexico by like a 12, 13-year-old kid at the barbershop, and he left the sideburns long. So.
Yeah, I think that's a good move.
Yeah, hopefully.
What do you think of your hair?
I like my hair. I've had really long hair. Do you remember when I had long hair?
Yeah.
When I got married, I mean, it was really long. So I've gone back and forth. Long hair, short hair. Now I like short hair. Okay, so when did you become the owner of the wine lab?
I took over as owner in 2022. When Brenda wanted to retire, and we had worked together for, at that point, 14 or 15 years. And so I had been there a long time, started out just helping her out with various odds and ends. The joke actually is that she hired me for light filing, was what she asked me if I would want to come and do to help her out for just a couple hours back in the fall of 2006. And it slowly progressed from, I did that for about 2 weeks. And then all of a sudden I was there a lot more than just a couple hours, and then was using all the equipment and helping build her a stronger network. This was back in the day when fax machines were actually a thing, and she had a floppy disk drive that she would carry from one computer to another, and the internet was only on one computer, and so there were some things that I was able to provide as far as advancements of technology for her, and bring the lab up to speed with current things that were available to make it a little bit more easy to distribute the results and get things done in a more efficient manner. And so I had daily teachings from Brenda, and she's a great teacher for anybody. I mean, she used to be a chemistry professor at Cal Poly. She has her PhD in chemistry and knew just all sorts of things. And so I spent so many years with Brenda every day in the lab doing all sorts of things. It was like my own school, really. Which was pretty cool, and we had fun. I mean, we were great friends, still talk to her regularly, and it's been a really good journey. I've enjoyed it a lot.
Did you have a wine lab background?
I did not. My my formal education is actually in recreational therapeutic recreation and working with people with disabilities. So I used to work with mostly adults with developmental disabilities was the field that I had worked in. And when my husband and I moved here to Paso, I wasn't interested in that. One of the only openings was at the state hospital in Atascadero, and I wasn't particularly interested in working in that setting. So started looking around to see what else I could do, and stumbled into working with Brenda through a family connection. Actually, my husband's father had helped her set up the business plan, and so that was how I got to know her, was through that. And then just fell into it, and there's a lot of things that I really love about the being there.
Yeah, you've done a great job, and I think the transition from Brenda to you is really seamless. I mean, you're the lab that I use. It's a fantastic lab, and you guys, you're easy to communicate with, and you're very helpful with everything. So now we mentioned the snacks. Are you the one that buys the snacks?
No, I don't actually buy the snacks. No, usually right now Jennifer is the one who is in charge of getting all the snacks, but we always do, no matter who's in charge of buying them, we always kind of share the responsibility of what would be a good snack to add to the mix. And if people see something, just last week, our bookkeeper's daughter was in the lab, and we were asking her, hey, last time you were out looking for snacks, what did you see that you liked? And because we're trying to keep a good variety, because a lot of people come in the lab multiple times in a week. So it's nice for them to have something different to get, instead of just always red vines or always pretzels or whatever it is. The red vines are always there, but
you guys have a good atmosphere. You think of a lab as a sterile white coat, plain walls. Your guys' place is fun, and you make it lively and different and unique. And I think you attract people that way. And you're not going to kick someone out if they want to hang out. And
right. Yeah.
Great. What wine are you drinking at home right now?
Let's see. I have most recently I've had a Niner rosé, which was great, and then right before that an RN Estate Cab Franc, which was also really great, and had that great Cab Francness of the.
We're gonna try Cab Franc today.
Yep.
Roger, that's his name, right?
Yep.
Roger. I'm trying to think of his name. Roger. Okay, Amy, what do you think of my hair?
I didn't know this was going to be about your hair.
Oh, you didn't? What did you think?
The outline that you gave us just said, what do you think of hair? And I'm like, well, I don't like when it's in my food. It's good. I don't like when it's in my wine. Are you mean cat hair, dog hair? I'm pretty tolerant. No, I think your hair looks amazing. And I was wondering if you'd just gotten it cut, and it didn't occur to me that that was the hair you were referring to on the outline. So yeah, I love that like a 12, 13-year-old kid did it. I mean, that is a great skill for
anyone can
develop. And he can be a barber until he is really old, and he's going to know all the gossip. So
this was in Mexico in a little town, and it was in someone's home. It was just outside the house. They had a sign, and we walked in, and this kid comes out, and we said, we're here for a haircut. And we thought he was going to go go back and find, bring his parents or bring somebody who was him. And he brings out his chair and he turns on the TV and he gets his apron out for us.
That is so cool.
But he gave my wife didn't like my son's haircut because he not that he just part the hair, but he made a cut in his hairline to really accentuate the part.
Oh.
So it was like a serious nick through his, like he got scalped a little bit. Yeah. But when he combs his hair, you can't really, I thought it was kind of cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, but when we came back from Mexico, he got another haircut here. That's what happened.
Oh, that thing will grow out.
Yep.
That's the thing about hair.
So, Amy, so I know you specialize in evaluation of the wines at the lab. You do.
Oh, I do.
You do sensory things?
The sensory program. I think the sensory, what we offer in sensory analysis is really just more of a tool for people to come to grips with what might be the problem with their wine. If the chemistry looks normal, if everything, everything else being normal, what's going on here? And so I have enough experience from my education and my continuing education, all the wines I've tasted. I can kind of pinpoint what a problem might be, and I can also point winemakers, both professional and home winemakers, to maybe a remedy for that problem.
Mm-hmm.
If it's a problem. Sometimes I'm like, this is great. I don't know what your problem is. It's a great Sangiovese. But, that's kind of few and far between.
Okay, and you've made wine, which is awesome.
Yeah, I've made wine. I kind of still do make wine, but I've been a winemaker for 20, I don't even want to say more than 20 years, more than 25. But yeah, I have slowed down, and I've been a little more selective about the people that I want to make wine for and the people that I want to help. And I'm doing a lot of project-based stuff, like help me do this with my wine, or help me with this piece of equipment that I want to bring into my winery, or and then I'm helping another lady make sparkling wine. But that's not a full-time job. And so when Heather needed someone in the lab, it was really a cool opportunity, because I've known Heather for a long time, and I've been a customer of the lab for a long time, and I love that. I love the atmosphere. And it's just really a cool place to work. So,
and you worked in a wine lab previous?
Well, yeah. I mean, when I was
a winery,
when I was a tiny baby winemaker, I've run all those analyses, but so much has changed. The technology has changed so much from when I was in college in the 90s, learning wine analysis, and it was all wet chemistry, and then occasionally you'd have a instrumental analysis, GCMS or HPLC or something, but mostly it was titrating, looking at stuff under the microscope. The alcohol we'd measure by ebullientiometry. It was kind of primitive, and so it's really impressive to me that modern wine analysis technology has come so far.
Yep. Yeah. No, it's amazing how many things that you can test, right? I mean, you could test the crud out of a wine. You could look at every little part of the wine.
Oh, I want to.
And then you could do the opposite end of the spectrum. I know people that, I just pick the grapes, crush the grapes, let nature take its course. The wine comes out. I never add anything. I never check anything. And it comes out well. It doesn't come out well. I don't know. But I think there's a happy medium where you certainly need to analyze the wine. And legally, you need to know what the alcohol is and all sorts of things like that. Well, what are you drinking at wine? What are you drinking at home right now, Amy?
I drink. It's funny. I drink a lot of imports. I don't want to make Paso Robles sad, but to me, sometimes the style of an imported red, say from Spain, is more appealing to me now than a local one. I'm a huge fan of Chardonnay in all of its forms. So like white Burgundy and Chablis and sparkling wine, but basically I can't afford to drink what I want to be drinking. But you know what? I have a lot of friends who make great wine, and I drink a lot of their wines, which is fun.
Nice. Well, let's hop right into the next segment of this podcast, the world of wine. So typically I talk about some trend in the industry. We've done cork versus screw cap, things like that. But since we've got the lab ladies, we're going to talk about pH and TA. So pH and TA are critical, distinct metrics defining wines Stability, color, and taste. TA measures total acid concentration, perceived tartness, while pH measures the strength of acids, microbial, and chemicals. Stability. Typical ranges of pH in wine are 3 to 4. So, an important role of pH, the lower the pH is, it keeps wine safe from bacteria and spoilage microorganisms. And the color, the lower the pH, the more stable the color will be, especially on red wines. There's a nice red brick color, depending how low the pH is of the wine. SO2 effectiveness, so which we're going to talk about that as well. The lower the pH, the more effective SO2 is in the wine, which is an antimicrobial agent, an antioxidant, antibacterial, all those great things. Balance. I like this a lot because, when we taste wines, we want them to taste balanced. We don't want them to taste thin and flabby. So wines with a high pH and a low TA will taste flabby and thin, where wines with with too much acid could taste too tart. So it's got to be balanced in between, and then you've got sugar and alcohol and tannins and all those kind of playing in. So pH and TA definitely play a role in how the wine is balanced. Balance and structure. So TA and pH provide a backbone of freshness to balance sweetness. I just mentioned that. With alcohol too, yeah, that's a big point. With high alcohol wine, sometimes the more acid is there can help to mask the perceived alcohol. So I'll hand it over to you ladies. I'm a firm believer in adjusting the acid early on the crush pad. So we add tartaric acid when the grapes are picked, and I'm figuring out how much I want to add right away. And I think as it integrates early on in the grape juice, it works best. But I wanted to get your guys' take on pH and TA. Whoever wants to.
Sure, I'll start, and then Amy can circle back. So yeah, pH and TA, those are very common analysis that we run every day. Especially during the juice season, we run a lot of pHs. There's, I think most people are running pHs with an actual pH probe. And then in our lab, we're lucky enough to have an instrument that we lovingly refer to as Phil, spelled with a lowercase p, uppercase H. And it's an automated pH analyzer, which is great. And we love Phil, and can run up to 96 pHs in a very short amount of time, which is excellent. And then on the TA side, one of the things that's interesting and important to pay attention to is that TA is actually titratable acidity, and sometimes people will confuse that with total acidity, which is a combination of all of the different acids added up together. So your malic acid, your titratable acidity,
There's a lot of great acids, aren't there?
Yeah.
It's mostly malic and tartaric at the juice stage, and there's a small amount of maybe a little citric, maybe some. You hope not, but you hope there's no acetic or gluconic acid at that point. But so typically, if you add your malic and your tartaric together, that's a pretty close approximation of your total acidity. But your TA, your titratable acidity, will always be lower than that. It has to do with the way the ions and the acids dissociate during the titration process. And somehow someone somewhere came up with this arbitrary number of 8.2 pH to be the defining moment at which the acids are neutralized, and that's where we come up with the TA number. In the U.S., we represent it as grams tartaric per 100 milliliters, or per liter. In the EU, they use sulfuric acid equivalents. In Australia, they use tartaric acid equivalents, but they only titrate to 7. So it really depends on where you are. It's a number that, as you make wine, you get used to looking at, but it may or may not be that meaningful.
Okay. Yeah, and I know I've heard this a lot, how with the change of weather, climate, that sort of thing, that the acids are changing. And I've never really seen it that way. I think each year is different and unique. I think the main thing is the timing of harvest. So early harvest, the grapes are more acidic. End of harvest, the grapes lack acid. And then crop load. I don't hear winemakers or vineyard managers talk about this enough. Like, the heavier the crop, the less acid is going to be in the grapes. It's just it can't do it, right?
Right.
Or so crop load has it. I've had 2 tons per acre, right? That the sugar is super high and the acid super high. Well, it's because the vine had more potential. The vine wanted to produce more fruit. The vine wants to grow more, and it's limited to the small amount of fruit because we drop fruit or we shoot thin or whatever we did. So crop load has a big effect on pH and TA.
Yeah, like the more fruit there is on the vine, the more diluted the chemicals are that the vine produces, including sugar and acid.
Mm-hmm.
So we always start looking at pH and TA really early on before picking. It's a really important parameter of ripeness.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what Heather said, like, it's probably the number one thing that we look at every day. There's more pHs than anything.
Right. What do you think is a healthy range in Paso for pH? Is it like?
Well,
I know we always say we don't want anything over 4, but I mean I think anything over like 3.8. I'm always trying to get it to like the 3.65 is the magic.
yeah, I
target.
don't know. I mean, there's so many things that can affect pH that aren't acid. The buffering capacity of the grape juice and the other ions that are in there with their positively charged ions will affect your pH. Oh, can we see that slide on how potassium affects pH? It's really interesting because you could have a pretty high acid wine, but the pH might go up because you've got a lot of potassium in the soil that goes in through the roots and becomes a part of the juice.
And this is site specific, correct? Like this is for specific vineyards that have potassium in their soils.
Right. And
it's not across the board. This is
and it typically, a lot of people add potassium to the vines late in the season as the vine starts to shut down, and it starts to look a little
increased ripeness.
it starts to look a little yellow, and then the vineyard manager puts the potassium, maybe a foliar application on to make it look green again, and increase accumulation of sugars, which in most years in Paso Robles, we don't really need to worry about how much sugar we've accumulated.
Right.
We have, not every year is 2025.
Right. What about the relationship? We've got that slide too of SO2 and pH, the stability of free SO2. Can you ladies talk about this? Because I've heard of this, but I don't refer to this often enough as I need to as a winemaker.
Well, you can have a copy of this when we leave. Yeah. It's actually you can find it online too. But most people say that. Well, it is true that the SO2 is present in wine at three different ways, and actual SO2, free SO2 is only okay, as the pH goes down, the active portion of the SO2, the antioxidant, the antimicrobial fraction of it increases. So you could have 15 parts free, and it doesn't mean the same thing at pH 3 as it does at pH 4. It's way less of that active form is present at pH 4. So a lot of people say that you need to keep your wine at 0.8 molecular. Can we see the chart again?
Because how do you do the molecular part? How do you keep your wine at the molecular?
Well, right. So if it's 3.3 pH and you need to keep it at 26, but if it's 4, you'd have to have it be over 120, which you're not going to. Nobody does that. Nobody goes, well, my wine is pH 3.8, so I need to have 77 ppm free SO2. I don't think anyone says that. And part of it because when you get that high and your free SO2 is that high, you're going to experience, you're going to have a sensory note to it. You're going to be able to smell it. It's going to bleach. If you have red wine, it's going to bleach it. If it's rosé, it's going to turn this weird, like yellowy orange, so I think I think one of the reasons why you say people want to keep their pH in check is so that they're not required to keep their SO2 so high to keep it active.
Yeah, that's why like the goal or the target is 35 parts per million as for red wines. That's what I was taught, and that's always shoot for, because our typical pH range of red wines are 3.5 to 3.7, or could be as low as 3.4. So 35 parts per million is a good.
But like
it's a good number.
different winemakers have different ideas about that,
Right?
and that's stylistic or whatever you believe in.
Yeah, I want the wine to just be healthy and stable. I don't want to have re-fermentation or something funky happening by not having enough SO2. That's what I've heard and read recently too, is that kind of like people are they're trying to get away from adding SO2 on the crush pad, by adding native yeast. There's all those different things you could do now, but I've seen, like, I don't know, the more SO2 you add on the crush pad, the more stable the aromas, the esters, like all that's going to be, because it's going to kill or inhibit all the native stuff that could produce off odors. So it's almost the opposite. You almost want to add more SO2 when the grapes are picked to just knock everything out, all the wild indigenous stuff, and then you add your cultured yeast, and then off you go, and it's more of a pure, clean fermentation. So
but
I'm of the opinion to add more SO2 on the.
Oh yeah, okay. Well, if you have if you have constraints about how much SO2 you can add, like an organic producer might, you add it on the crush pad, and then you have total SO2, but it all gets bound. And by the end of fermentation, you need to add more, and you've already got, 30 or 40 in there, and your limit is 100 or whatever. So it's a challenge, and that's why some people don't want to add it at the crush pad, because they want to keep it low throughout the process.
Didn't think of that. Yeah, speaking of that, I'm glad you mentioned that. Organic, biodynamic, regenerative winemaking. Can you both touch on that? I don't know a lot about those practices, but how do they, alter pH/TA? Can they do anything? Can they add tartar? Can they add malic? Can they do these things? If you're,
that's an interesting question about the acid additions. I don't know. I know there are plenty of additives that are considered to be organic that you're allowed to use in organic wine production, but it's important to differentiate organic wine from wine made from organic grapes.
Right.
And made from organic grapes, you're allowed to have up to 100 ppm total SO2. If you have organic wine, it has to be under 10 total. Well, so that you can never add, because your fermentation will produce 10 parts per million just naturally.
Right.
And so I think that, because SO2 protects against microbes and spoilage, the best tool that people who want to make organic wine or really minimal intervention wine have is maybe just early bottling, and create a style of wine that where that works. Maybe it's not a super extracted red that needs age in barrels. Maybe it's like a fun, fruity wine that you can bottle, in November or December,
Right.
So
that's what I always say, like wines of the Bible. We had an episode where we talked about that, and they talk about having young wine, because the only wine that would be worth drinking was young wine, because they didn't add anything to protect the wine.
Right.
So after 6 months, the wine probably spoiled. So you need to drink it young.
I tease people about wine. Some people say that the wine of the Bible was really just grape juice. There was no alcohol. And they're like, okay, but back then that would have lasted about 3 days, and then it would be wine.
Right. Oh, that's very true. Okay, well, let's move on to VA, which is another thing that we check in winemaking. And I was going to use this for my nerd out on wine, because VA is volatile acidity. Not many people know this. If you work in the wine industry in a lab or in a cellar, you know about this. So it refers to the acid, primarily acetic acid and ethyl acetate, which is nail polish remover, or that smell that you would pick up in nail polish remover. It's produced by bacteria or yeast during fermentation. So it's a spoilage yeast that creates this VA. A small amount of VA actually adds complexity to wine. It could be interesting and distinctive and help to lift the fruitiness of the wine, but it can get out of control to the point where the wine is spoiled and it's turned into vinegar. So this is a test that the ladies run at the wine lab, where you're checking your VA. And we talked about SO2. So usually you check free SO2 and VA together, because if your SO2 goes down in the wine, then your VA could start to rise if there's not that level of protection. And then a spoilage bacteria could start to do something, and then the wine could go bad. So VA, how do you ladies feel about this? And do you think Paso does a good job controlling VAs? Do you see high VAs? You don't have to name any names, but
I would say we get to see it all, but I think for the most part, most wineries do a great job of controlling VA, because they want to protect their product that they're making, that they've spent so much time and investment on creating something that they want people to enjoy. So we test it quite a bit as well. It's another common test that we run. One of the interesting things that kind of speaks to something that Amy mentioned of having done testing back when she was in school and how the tests have changed over the years. VA used to only be measured using a cash still, which is quite a laborious process. It involves a heating element, and you're measuring all of the volatile acids. And now, primarily when you go and get a VA test at any lab, they're just running acetic acid. And so the industry has shifted to only really looking at the main component in there, which is the acetic acid. And it's still referred to on reports as VA, which is interesting, that it's just the industry has just shifted to adopting that's what we're looking at, is the acetic acid. And so, and that's really the main, I mean, if you get a VA of, say you get a VA of 0.08 grams per 100 mil, and you also were to test the acetic acid on that wine, your acetic acid might be 0.076. And so it's a very small difference for the most part. And so the need to actually run a cash still VA has just gone out the wayside. And then the ethyl acetate, you can also measure that. Typically it's measured by gas chromatograph. But it's really rarely looked at. But people don't spend too much time looking at that, and you can smell it pretty easily. It's a pretty obvious note. But
Do sometimes people ask you to look at the microbial stability of their wine as well, just to figure out what's growing in there?
Yep. Yeah, and that's something else we can do, is we can look at it under the scope, under the microscope, and identify if there is Acetobacter in there. And then there's a couple other microbes that could be in there, but in the wine world, there's not too much that can be in there bacteria-wise and yeast-wise. There's just a few things, which is nice, makes it easy for us when we're looking at what people might be seeing.
what do you think is the greatest cause of VA? What was the biggest?
There's two. To me, early on in the vineyard, you can have lactobacillus, which enters the grape through bird damage, bee damage. Sometimes rot will open up a hole where lactobacillus can get in, and that will actually metabolize sugar and create acetic acid. So lactobacillus in the vineyard is kind of scary. And then once you have wine, the main culprit there is Acetobacter, which is a bacteria that grows sort of toward the surface of the wine. It's aerobic, so it requires oxygen. Because one of the reasons you keep your wine in topped vessels, topped barrels, top them every month, every 6 weeks, whatever your program is. If there's no oxygen, there can be no Acetobacter creating. They actually turn ethanol into acetic acid.
Right. It's always how clean you keep everything is really key.
Oh yeah, sanitation is everything.
Mm-hmm. Very much so. Okay, well, yeah, the legal limit of VA is 1.2 grams per liter. Is that correct? Is it 1.2 or is 1.4? Or I don't.
1.2 on whites, 1.4 on reds.
Okay.
And then there's a different one for dessert, I think, isn't there?
Yeah, sweet wine, like dessert wine is 1.2, but then a late harvest wine where it's over 28 bricks at harvest, you can have 1.5 in a white, and then you can have 1.7 in a red. Anyway, I think that at those levels, you'd be able to tell. But
Right.
they exist to protect the consumer from having to essentially drink sour wine, which is what vinegar means, literally.
Right. Yeah, and VA is perceived at different levels too. I've had some wines that have elevated VA or high VA, and you would never know. I mean, it's just masked by all these other by the oakiness of the wine or by other parts of the wine. So it's very dependent on that wine that you're trying. So yeah, okay. What about VA and organic growers or winemaking? Can they do anything to control it other than keep things clean and
Sanitation, topping,
mm-hmm.
sanitation.
It's decaying us too, right?
Yeah, right. I mean, and like I said earlier, like maybe early bottling, keep the wine young. Don't try
Right.
to, don't try to make it. I think, unfortunately, organic kind of limits your range of styles that you can produce.
Right.
That are going to be, delicious and not full of VA.
And you can harvest earlier too, because
Totally.
the
Then you have
sweet,
a
the riper the grapes get, the
lower pH,
yeah.
less chance of spoilage. Yeah, totally.
Yep. All right. Pretty fun. Lots of stuff here. Okay, well, let's move on to our event calendar and stay tuned to the end because we're going to taste two wines. We're going to taste Viognier and Cabernet Franc. Yeah, this weekend at Sculpterra, we have our wine club pickup parties. We're sold out, which is exciting. If you are a wine club member and you haven't gotten a ticket, you can give us a call and we'll let you know. Maybe we can squeeze you in. We'll see. But as of right now, we're sold out, and it's not supposed to rain this weekend. So that's a huge blessing. We can do these parties outside with our space heaters and everything, and we have live music, barrel tasting. I do a can you guess this wine game with the guests. So it's pretty fun. Different things. My son does have a basketball game, so I'm going to leave the Saturday party a little bit earlier, and I'm going to coach. The other coach is out of town, so watch out. I get to really run the kids ragged. Wait for this. And then the following weekend, I'm doing a blending party. I've talked a lot about this. Please get a ticket. This is super fun. We get really nerd out on wine. I give you different samples of wine. You get to create your own blend. It's a competition. We serve lunch. The menu looks really good. So that's happening the last day of February, Saturday the 28th. We have our Zinfest weekend. We talked about this last week. The food and wine pairing through the garden, where you try different appetizer paired with different wine, add a different sculpture. Really fun, really different and unique. A great experience. And Greek Festival, we're doing this April 18th. I've been in touch with the Greek Orthodox Church of St. Louis, St. Andrews. Talked to the father and the dance group. They're all going to come, and they do a big Greek festival at the Madonna Inn. I think it's in May, or it could be in June, May or June, and they get hundreds of people that come to this. It's a Saturday, Sunday thing, which should be great because we're going to do our event in April, kind of help them kick everything off, and they'll promote their event at our event. All right, well, what do we got now? Haha, too much information. It's part of the episode where I tell you more about my personal life. All the things I do. Well, I did just turned 40 years old. I had my Paul's 5K at 40. Thought this was a fun idea to, now that I'm getting older, we should stay in shape and run and exercise. So I invited all my friends, probably had 25 people participate in the run. We've got a couple pictures of us here. So I got third place, which was pretty good. It took me 25 minutes, right around there. But the surprising part about it was, my son Abraham won. He got first place, and he didn't want to run. At the beginning of the party, he said, "Oh, I just want to stay and hang out with my friends. I don't feel like running, or I'm not so into it." And I encouraged him. I said, "No, it's my birthday party. We're doing something different. We're going to go for a race." I said, "You could just run next to me, and we'll try to keep the pace up for everybody." So little did I know that my friend Andy Toby came. I invited him. I haven't seen him in years. He's a marathon runner. He does it every now and then. So the three of us were together, and then I couldn't keep up with them. And Andy's super sweet guy. He was encouraging Abraham and helping him breathe and with his stride and giving him a couple heads up and pointers and that. So they came in. Abraham came in first. Andy came in second. I came in third, and we did something cool though. So the first place winner got a goat from our goat farm, but we gave the goat to the fifth place winner, Alex. His his parents own 10 acres in Paso, and he had been on the search for goats. So he got a goat. The second place winner got 2 bottles of wine, and then the third place got a dozen eggs. We have 100 chickens on our property, a big chicken coop. So it was great. It was a lot of families did it where they did it as a family. Some people walked, ran, hiked, went around the property. So that was cool. Very fun. Now my son now wants to do it at his birthday. He wants to do a 5K race. So
Nice.
and now he's totally into it. So very fun. Thanks everyone. For those of you that were at the party. Really, really cool. And it didn't rain. The rain held off till the party was over. Animals in the vineyard, the time of the episode where we talk about a different animal that hangs out in the vineyard winery where we work. Rats. Okay, what about rats? I mean, it's starting to, we don't really like rats, right? We try to trap rats, kill them, keep them out of our homes, but they are a pest, and there's rats, there's mice, voles. So if you can know the difference of those three, we have all of those. So mice or mouse have those nice ears, Mickey Mouse. Rats don't have those round ears like that. Voles are like a gopher or a squirrel, like a small squirrel, and they eat roots of the vines and cause lots of problems. I remember when I lived in town, we had a rat problem in our house, and the pest guy came and he said, well, your problem is that your tree is leaning up against your house. So rats will run up the tree, and if they can run on a branch that lands on your roof, then they'll come through your house that way. So we pruned all the trees so you shouldn't have any trees touching your home. That's always key. And then when you feed your cats and dogs, make sure not to spill food, clean up, because rats are a source of disease. So I don't think you really want rats. I don't think anybody wants rats. But what has been your experience, Amy, with rats? Have you had a good experience, bad experience?
I've never seen rats in the vineyard, although I'm sure they exist, but I didn't know there were rats around my house, but then I got a cat, and he just was a ferocious hunter. And now he hasn't brought me a rat in a really long time, and I think it's because he's retired, and I'm worried that they're proliferating now.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Heather, what do you would say about this?
Yeah, I'm not a fan of having rats around. I haven't seen a rat in a long time. I think the closest I've come to any rodent activity was a couple of weeks ago. I was driving home from a friend's house, and a little white mouse ran in front of my car, and he made it to the other side.
Oh, that was very kind of you.
But
yeah.
I just let him go.
Yeah, we have to put mouse traps in our tractors, in the engines, because what's weird, I already did this, why this happens, but electrical wiring is coated with soy.
Yeah.
Did you guys know this? So the mice like to chew on the wiring. So I've had them destroy a harness on a forklift, which costs thousands of dollars. On our tractors, they've caused thousands of dollars of damage. So, and if you leave your engines still for too long, they'll build their nests. I've seen it in the air filter. I've seen it, in the engine itself. But they chew on the wiring. They do it. They're not eating it. They just like to chew it because it's coated with soy. I don't know why we do that. Let's stop doing that.
Why wouldn't we put some kind of mouse repellent like that they wouldn't like in the soy that coats the wires?
I think it's a protective coating. I don't know. Heather, have you heard of this?
I have heard of it, and I have seen it. We were on a trip. My husband and I were in New Mexico a couple of years ago, and the place we were staying on our second or third night, they said, oh, you can park over in this carport. So we did. And then that first night that it was in the carport, some pack rat got in there under the hood and started. So the next day when we went there to the car, opened the, I think the engine light or something came on. And so we opened the hood, and there was just all kinds of sticks and all kinds of stuff that had been brought into under the hood. And the rat had started chewing on some of the cabling. So we didn't park it in the carport anymore. And I don't know, somehow the rat, maybe it was too hot if it wasn't in the carport. I mean, because it was super hot there, and maybe the carport provided enough shade so that it was cool enough that it didn't cook the rat when it went in there at 9 o'clock and 110 degrees.
Yep. Okay. Well, yeah, we've got Norway rats. What was the other rat we have? We have 2 different rooftop rats. Yep. So we don't like rats. We try to get rid of them. But yeah, if you have a cat, we have 6 cats on our property, so we try to keep control of the rat population. They can have a lot of babies, so you got to stay on top of that. Get those mouse traps going. All right. Well, moving right along from animals in the vineyard. Now we've got mailbags. So these are questions that either comments that you've left or people ask me. But I wanted Heather to ask me these questions specifically now that we're talking about wine lab stuff.
So I remember back when you first started, actually, and you were learning your way around the winery and whatnot and all the tests and coming in. So you've been coming into the lab for a number of years at this point. So I know some of your favorites that you ask a lot, that you have us test, but what is your favorite test that you like looking at with your wines?
Yeah, I like the wine pack, the big test where it shows alcohol, pH, TA, VA, SO2, and you can see like the whole picture. And that's fun to do, during harvest. The grapes are crushed, fermentation's over, we press the wine, and then we do that wine pack test. And it's kind of like, oh, I wonder what the alcohol is. Oh, I wonder if the pH and TA are in check. I wonder, how well we did adjusting it early on. And, because a lot of the times the grapes come in and we get a Brix reading of 25 Brix or 28 Brix, but it's never a direct result of, because it's this Brix, it's going to equal this amount of alcohol. So it's always kind of a mystery. So when we do that wine pack and we're finally checking alcohol, then we can work backward and say, wow, this was over 16% alcohol. So the Brix must have been 28 Brix. Wow, well, it seemed like it was only, we thought it was only 26. So that's always fun. It's always like opening up a Christmas gift, like, ooh, I wonder what this is. And then it gives me an idea of if we're going to blend those lots or bottle them on their own. And it starts the ball rolling of my overall plan for the wine, the wine pack.
And I know you, I get your harvest newsletters that you send out each week of your reports of the editing and whatnot, which are always fun to read. And you measure Brix and a few other things with the fruit and whatnot. Are you ever thinking of starting your own lab over there at the winery?
Yeah, we've talked about it. It's funny. I've had different people tell me different things. Like, you have to make so much wine for it to make sense. Like, if you make 10,000 cases or less, it just doesn't pencil out, because of just the cost for the equipment and to set it up. And then you need an employee to do it. I learned how to do these things in school, but I would have to hire someone to do it. So you guys do such a great job at your lab, and it's you guys are quick. You guys get the results in super fast. So I don't think it makes sense, and we enjoy having you guys do it, and you guys do such a good job. But if we ever made 100,000 cases, maybe, but we're more than likely going to stay about that 10,000 case level, maybe 15,000 cases or so. So at the moment, we are not starting our own lab. So thank you for taking that part of the business for us, because that's one less thing I have to figure out.
Yeah.
Running a wine lab. For sure. Yeah, but before we taste the wine, can you once again say, a little bit about the lab, where you're located, what your hours are, sort of thing?
Sure.
Baker Wine and Grape.
So Baker Wine and Grape, we're locally owned and operated. We are on Riverside Avenue, 825 Riverside, suite number 3. And so right near the Alliance Square building is kind of a good marker for people. We're open Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. We do have a little bit longer hours during the harvest season, and can help you out on weekends by appointment if needed. But during harvest time, we're open on Saturdays from 10 to 4. And we'll welcome everybody to come on in. And also we give, if there's people who are very curious about our equipment or want to know more, we're always happy to talk and dialogue with everybody that comes in. We enjoy getting to know the community and everybody that comes in, and nice group of people. There's 6 of us that work there, and we have 2 Amy's, Jennifer and Roxanne and Barb and myself. Yeah, we have a great time and look forward to running more analysis.
Yeah, and I don't think most people realize how important the wine lab part of winemaking is, or how big of a role labs play in the wine industry. So that's why I wanted to have them here today, because really it's a huge part of it. Knowing all this chemistry of the wine really helps the day-to-day decision making of what the winemakers are going to do. All right, let's taste some wines. We're going to try Viognier to begin with. Let me get the wine here. One moment. So I'll pour soup for.
Okay.
This is nice because you ladies are the first people to taste this wine. Our 2025 Viognier. So this was only 600 cases, 630 cases. We could pass that to Heather. Most of the fruit is from our vineyard. I did get 5 tons from J. Ducey on the west side, my first year making wine from their vineyard. And it was excellent quality. I really liked their grapes. We planted 7 acres of Viognier, actually 7.7 3 years ago. So this year will be the first year those vines are in production and producing. And then we've got a 1.5 acre block in front of the tasting room and an acre into the terraced hillside. So Viognier is our best selling wine. It's got our John Jagger sculpture cat on the label. And we've said it all the time on this podcast. Viognier is, Paso's white. It's a red wine drinker's white wine. It just matches our climate, soil, topography. It's meant for Paso. Viognier 2025. So we are the first to taste this wine.
Cheers.
Let's see. It smells lovely. Viognier.
Have you guys always produced Viognier?
Yeah, we planted Viognier in 2005. Started making it in 2008. But I remember people didn't want it at the tasting room. It was, what is that wine? How do you say this? This is strange. I've never heard of this. And then I remember like 2012, 13, 14, it just took off. And people were coming and saying, do you have Viognier? Or Eberle sold out of Viognier. Vino Robles doesn't have any. Robert Hall, do you have Viognier? And I was producing a lot. I was buying grapes from multiple vineyards, west side, east side, all over Paso. And now we have more acreage coming on board. So I love it. I love Viognier. And I do it in multiple stages. So we pick a percentage of the fruit early on and make that in stainless steel, so it's more tart and acidic and fresh. And then we do a late pick where it's, overripe, and you get those, stone fruits and nectarine and all those accentuated aromas really come through. And that we age in oak, French oak, and then blend the 2 lots together and bottle it young. So this is, this was picked in October. It's only February 17th, so just a couple months of age, and it's ready to go. And it's heat stable and cold stable, all those good things.
Oh, that's what we told you.
You did, yeah.
Yeah, this is lovely.
Yeah.
It's nice, isn't it?
Yeah. Stone fruit definitely comes through.
Yeah. Viognier.
One of my favorite varieties, and I think you're right about it being long misunderstood in our area.
Yeah. Yep. So, coming to the tasting room, we're still selling the 2024, which is very different, but really nice too. Just a wholly different flavor, texture, profile. So yeah, but the 24 is going to sell out within a couple months, and this one will be right behind it. So, Viognier. And then we're going to try Cabernet Franc. We'd like to try one white and one red. So. All right. Blink. All right. This wine was bottled last week, and where the Viognier was a short-aged wine, this was a long-aged wine. This was 2023 harvest, so this had 26 months aging in barrel, which typically I don't do that. I usually bottle our wines. Well, it depends on the wine, but this is probably the longest aged wine that we've ever done, because Cab Franc is known to be very tannic, dry, astringent, bitter. So it's really benefits with oxidation and more time in the barrel. This is fruit from our vineyard. We have 1.5 acres of Cabernet Franc. This vineyard is super pretty how we have it laid out. It's just really, really uniform. Like just looking at it right down the line, there's space in between the clusters. We have a cross arm system where it's a split canopy, and there's fruit hanging on either side. Then we leaf pull and expose the fruit, and it's just really pretty. It's a great, great vineyard, and we get it ripe. I know a lot of people struggle in Paso getting Cab Franc ripe. One key to that is to prune early. So we prune our Cab Franc after Christmas or first of the year, and then that just pushes along early bud break and gets the vine growing early, and then we're not picking in November. We can pick this in mid-September, early October. And I'm a big Cab Franc fan. This is 100% Cab Franc too, so by itself. Yeah. What do
Do
you
you
guys?
feel like Cabernet Franc is, I'm sorry,
That's
do
okay.
you feel like it expresses itself really well in Paso? Is it a good Paso variety?
Yeah, I think it has to, like I said, it has to be managed in the vineyard a certain way. It's like having Pinot Noir in Paso. We have Pinot, and I've learned certain ways to grow it and to treat it and manage the canopy that really helps it to come out great. So
It's really challenging.
yeah, the more you do in the vineyard, the less you'd have to do in the winery, right? Cabernet Franc. Yeah, and this wine we released right away because I didn't make a 2022. I used all of my Cab Franc of 22 for our Cabernet blend. The 2021 sold out in January, so this was perfect timing. Bottled this and released it right away.
It's been bottled like a week?
It was bottled on Wednesday.
Yeah, great.
Yeah. Yep. So Cabernet Franc, yeah. So we went from a light fruity wine to a more serious wine, Cabernet Franc.
Yeah.
I get people in the tasting room and they're like, "Oh, I like Cabernet Franc." I'm like, "Oh, you like Cab Franc?" I don't know if they really know they like Cab Franc or they know what they're talking about and they have it and it's making them pucker and it's astringent and like, "Oh, maybe I'll go back to Zinfandel," or they go back to something else. So, it's a certain palate that likes Cab Franc. It's not for everybody, but when you like it, it's really great. Cabernet Franc. I'm also a proponent in this, Amy. I'm sure you feel the same way, that you want to make the varietal true to itself. Like, you don't want to make a Cab Franc taste like a Zinfandel, for example, or you want to make each of the wines you make have its own set of tastes and characteristics that are different from the others. And that's my favorite comment at the tasting room. Someone comes in and say, "Wow, each wine it had a different taste than the other," which that means like, yeah, we're not using the same yeast and recipe and way of doing it. We're trying to make each wine its own unique tasting experience and make it most expressive that it can be to what it wants to be.
Nice.
Most definitely. All right. Well, cheers. Thank you, ladies. This was a very fun podcast. This is very cool. We can get more technical. Maybe I'll have to have you guys back, and we'll really start to break things apart. So, thanks again. Please leave us a comment. Go to the Wine Lab if you live here in Paso. They do a great job. They're just great people. They work hard, and we love working with them. So, please, leave a comment, like the video, spread it around to your friends and family, and I'll be back. I'll see you at the next episode. Thanks for watching.